Thank you, David. Thank you to Red Cloud for inviting us and having us here today to tell the CANALASKA story. This is an incredible story that's unfolding in front of us for the company. It's a couple of recent discoveries, maybe working on a third, and I'm going to share that with you today. It's great to be up here following some of these other players in the space that are having success as well. It just speaks to the potential endowment of the Athabasca Basin to produce some very significant assets moving forward. So I will make some forward-looking statements, so we'll get through this slide. But importantly, we have been moving two projects forward in 2023. First off, our Pike Zone at West MacArthur, where we intersected very high-grade mineralization for the very first time last summer. We've been moving that forward through the winter, expanding it. Now it was sitting, as of the winter, through 160 meters of connected mineralization at the unconformity, seeing good signs of connected mineralization down into the basin with new targets developing, and we'll talk about that today. We also announced a brand new high-grade intercept at our nearby Moon Lake South JV with Denison. We intersected 2.5% uranium over 8 meters in the very third drill program on that project over a 4-kilometer trend, so that's a new discovery on a separate project. We're now moving ahead in 2023, so great success for CANALASKA. And as of this morning, we've made yet another new announcement talking about Pike Zone. I encourage you to read that. I'll talk briefly about it today. We are a very well-structured company. We've got 125 million shares outstanding, 57-ish million market cap depending on the day, but we've got $7 million in the bank currently. So we're well-funded, we're well-structured, and we're moving through into this next uranium bull run with a very well-structured company in a spot price that is moving. Technical strength, that's one of the things that we've heard about today from a number of other companies. I will stress it for CANALASKA. We've got over 150 years of Athabasca Basin experience, multiple discoveries, multiple delineation programs on some of the biggest deposits in the world, and we're currently working on 2 new discoveries. So this is a great team. Myself, I was with Cameco for almost 25 years, 30 years in the nuclear space, and more recently with CANALASKA, moving these great assets forward. Mr. Nathan Bridge, who's here with me this week, a bright geoscientist coming from Cameco. I've known him for over 10 years. It's really him and his team that have been going out and making these discoveries in the last 12 months. A lot of credit to them as they look to unleash the value within our portfolio through that discovery. And just recently, in the last 3 months, we brought on Misty Urbach, again, a geoscientist, but importantly, coming from Cameco marketing. She was over in Asia running those sales agreements for Cameco, selling pounds to people that really didn't want it. So a fantastic team here built around the nuclear space. So I'm very pleased to be working with these very talented individuals. Got a great board led by Ambassador Thomas Graham, 4 successive U.S. presidencies through the 90s, moving weapons-grade material into the uranium fuel cycles. So just an incredible believer in what we're doing as CANALASKA in the future of nuclear. And importantly, we've heard about it today, Indigenous agreements. This is one of our strengths, we believe, and part of that is driven by the board. We brought on, about 2 years ago, Mr. Jeff Gay, who leads, he's CEO for the Athabasca group of companies, which is very prevalent up in the northern part of Saskatchewan where we do all of our work. So a very strong board and a very strong team. So we're an active project generator and explorer, so it's a hybrid model that we deploy, very similar to some other players out there. We look for projects, right geoscience, right opportunities. We bring in partnerships to move those forward and de-risk them, but on those where we feel the exploration potential is highest, we'll go out and actually spend our capital. So we've got over 300,000 hectares of land, principally in the eastern Athabasca Basin, where all that critical infrastructure, mining and milling of Cameco and Oranos, is situated, and we're moving these assets forward through researching, acquiring, bringing in deals, partnerships to help move it all towards discovery and minimizing our dilution to our shareholders. I won't talk about the macros, they're well known, but SMRs are a big part of the future. Long-term contracting, it's come back. That's been one of the signposts I've been looking for coming out of Cameco for so many years. It's just something that really had to show up, and here it is. It's showing up again in 2022 and 2023. The green line on the right, we heard of the WNA a couple months ago, is inaccurate. It's not factoring in SMRs. I hear through Misty on my team that it also doesn't include restarts or refurbishments out there. So that green line needs to be much higher, much steeper, and what it means is we need to find a lot more uranium. And we're in a step change environment. In order to bring that uranium to market, you're going to have to put it at a price that's going to incentivize new production. And Tier 2 deposits out there break even somewhere around $70 or $80 a pound. You're going to have to forward sell that uranium to incentivize those mines to come into production at some place I would predict north of $100 a pound. So we're in a step change environment. If we want to add pounds to this production profile here globally, it's going to have to change, and I believe we're moving towards that step change. So our portfolio, again, over 300,000 hectares, focused principally in the Eastern Athabasca Basin. We've got an incredible set of nickel assets that I'll briefly talk about at the end and where that's going. It's very exciting times within CANALASKA's portfolio. So we came through a very aggressive 2023. We had multiple drilling programs on new discoveries at West McArthur, our Moon Lake South JV with Denison. We just wrapped up West McArthur, which we announced today, and we're waiting results from Moon Lake South JV with Denison. We also hit in the second hole on our Geeky project, mineralization of 0.27%, the second drill hole on a newly generated project with our partner Basin Energy listed on the ASX. So an incredible year for CANALASKA. Our target scenarios span everything from shallow targets like Eagle Point or an Arrow, right through a mid-depth, more like a Cigar Lake, right through the deeper targets like West McArthur or the McArthur River deposit. Now we're not scared of these depths because these deposits, when they form, create large alteration halos. And when you know what they look like and understand them, you can actually use them to your advantage to vector into McArthur River Cigar Lake analog. So our portfolio spans all of these opportunities. And here's the first one, Pike Zone. 12 kilometers away from the McArthur River mine. You see it on the right, 750 million pounds of uranium at McArthur River, one of the premier Tier 1 assets on the planet. We're 12 kilometers away with a partner, Cameco, drilling high-grade mineralization in our Pike Zone. This is a new uranium discovery in the Eastern Athabasca Basin right near all of this critical infrastructure. We can drive here year-round to work. We're not limited by weather or timing through the year. And what you see on the right-hand side, that's the haul road that takes McArthur River ore down to Key Lake Processing Facility. This is what it looks like at the Pike Zone. Now, the image on the right is a photo I took when I was chief geologist at Eagle Point Mine. That's 400 meters below the unconformity. That's an ore grade drive underground at Eagle Point where it's less than a meter wide. If we put the best 6 meters of this Pike Zone together, that's that yellow line on the right. This is why we're excited. It has the right scale. It's got grades that look every bit like the best part of an Eagle Point. We are clearly in Tier 1 country here and hitting Tier 1 type assets. So last year we reported grades as high as 25%. Now it's very hard to do this, so this is exciting to us because we have the opportunity for this to actually be better somewhere nearby Pike Zone, and that's really what we've been focused on in 2023 is moving this asset forward. So we came through the winter and we demonstrated that at Pike Zone we now have 160 meters of connected mineralization at the unconformity. Varying grades, but it's connected mineralization. This is a prolific mineralized structure in the Eastern Athabasca Basin. We also indicated the high grades in the basement. This has every indication of being basement and unconformity type mineralization, which is very common at all of these deposits in the Athabasca Basin. So our target areas continue to expand. We continue to hit high grades, and now we've followed that up in the summer with additional drilling. And we just announced this today where we went out and tested some of these other targets up to 2 kilometers away from the Pike Zone itself, and I'll get right into it if it changes. We've now got mineralization pushing out to 200 meters on strike at the unconformity. We actually undercut the target to the northeast. We are about 50 meters below the unconformity, and we need to follow that up at the unconformity to really see what that means, but we're seeing all the structure and the alteration underneath that sort of that orange ribbon that you see on the left, again indicating that the basement and the unconformity here are highly prospective. We now have mineralization extending from the unconformity down into the basement, also 160 meters along the main structure at Pike Zone. So this is a good indication of the prolific nature of this mineralization, and it's opened up new targets at depth, again thinking of an Eagle Point or an Arrow, one of these basement analogs underneath that unconformity. On the right, we stepped out 800 meters to test the structure that's hosting Pike Zone to see what we were going to see. And lo and behold, we went over the target by about 50 meters, and we're seeing gravitic structures. This doesn't mean a lot to you, but what it is it's a type of clay that's very commonly associated with the mineralization in the Athabasca Basin model. We see it at Pike Zone, adjacent to the mineralization, a lot of dravite. We see it at the nearby Fox Lake discovery, 70 million pounds of 8%, dravite-hosted mineralization peripheral to that deposit. We're seeing it 800 meters away from Pike Zone. It's a testament to the prolific nature of this mineralization. We're going to get back here in 2024 and follow this up. We're starting to see the size of the mineralizing system that we want to see for a Tier 1 asset. Now, in the spring, we have more than just West McArthur. We announced a brand new discovery with our partner Denison at our nearby Moon Lake South JV. The third ever drilling program on this project intersected high-grade mineralization. We own 25% of this project. It intersected high-grade mineralization up to 7% uranium, but really it's 2.5% over 8 meters up in the sandstone. Again, above the unconformity. It shouldn't be there. This is an indication that you're seeing the right type of environment for high-grade mineralization on Moon Lake South JV. So this is more akin to the Phoenix deposit, let's say, the nearby Phoenix deposit that Denison owns. And again, to get these types of grades up in the sandstone where it shouldn't be, well away from the unconformity, suggests there's a lot of potential once you approach that critical boundary, that unconformity, and this is what Denison is working on following up right now. So we look to get back here in 2024 as well to follow this up. So we've got 2 high-grade discoveries within our portfolio in the Eastern Athabasca Basin. Now, why the Eastern Athabasca Basin? Because the McArthur River is just getting ramped up. When it does, it's got about 15 years of mine life left. That's it. That's its reserve base. There is no other uranium at McArthur River that's going to go into production at Key Lake. There is a need for a Tier 1 asset to backfeed the pipeline post-McArthur River. Cigar Lake, Phase 1 has about 5 to 6 years left. Phase 2, Tier 2. It needs that price of uranium to be up around $100 a pound to move forward. So imagine a scenario in the Eastern Athabasca Basin, the 3 mills of Verano and Cameco, all needing feed within the next 15 years. That sounds like a long time away. It's not. It's literally too late now. So this is where we come in. If Pike Zone is real, if it's a Tier 1 asset with our partner Cameco, it's 12 kilometers away from McArthur River. It goes right down to the Key Lake Mill. This is a perfect scenario in the perfect environment with the perfect partner that we're going to clearly focus on finding and defining that Tier 1 asset. So we have a large portfolio. Part of the business is project generation. We heard it from Sky Harbor recently. That's what we do as well. We went out and staked a bunch of ground here about a year ago, and we optioned it off to an entity called Basin Energy, a newly listed entity on the ASX. The second ever drilling program on the Geeky project returned 0.27% uranium. This is very close to 92 Energy and Baseload's GMZ and Accio zone. It's just a few kilometers away, same geological model. Second hole, 0.27% uranium. This could be a third discovery sitting within CANALASKA's portfolio and with its partner company, Basin Energy, which we own 23% of through this deal. It's a great scenario for our shareholders. Nickel. We do have a part 2. Now, we're uranium focused, let me be clear, that's our game, but over the last number of years when no one wanted to have this conversation, we went out and staked an incredible district scale nickel portfolio in the neighboring province of Manitoba, the Thompson Nickel Belt. It is truly world-class. We're second only to Vale in terms of land holdings right near the Thompson mine, the milling operation of Vale's. And what we've done over the summer is we've found a way to monetize it for our shareholders. So one way, taking our 9 properties, we're doing 5 of those properties into a spin-out deal for our shareholders. Nice, clean vehicle, going to be listed on the CSE. We're moving through the final stages of that process. We're literally weeks away from having Core Nickel Corp out and public, and it will look to move those assets forward. We also found a deal through an entity, Volterra, now called NickelX, which will take 4 of the assets at the very northern end of this belt and move them forward through a $9 million deal. Again, we're going to own a lot of shares in NickelX. They're going to put a lot of money into the ground with the drill bit, and if we're lucky and we're right, we're going to have some significant nickel mineralization without using our uranium money. So that's an incredible future for the nickel space. And in order to set up Core Nickel for success, I'm just flagging this because it will literally be public within a number of weeks. Core Nickel will actually be anchored by an 82 million pound indicated resource, the Mel Nickel deposit, which is 20 kilometers away from the Thompson mine. This is an incredible asset that we got our hands on in the spring, which is going to anchor this company coming out of the gate, and it has room to grow. Importantly, we have the land on strike from it that's going to allow those targets to develop and hopefully be built upon with further discoveries. So an incredible set of assets in the nickel space that we're monetizing for our shareholders and building value, we hope. So we tick all the boxes, but importantly, we're advancing new discoveries. And I just want to flag that we're advancing multiple new high-grade discoveries within the Eastern Athabasca Basin, literally within the last few months. So thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure, and I'll take some questions.